Hi guys, I just filmed a 30-minute podcast episode with no audio. Yay! Love that. Waste of time. It's not a waste of time. Old me used to get so upset over shit like that, but I am truly at a point in my life where everything is a growing lesson, and I hope that I have audio this time. I didn't film this Friday because we're actually going on vacation Thursday through Monday. I feel like I already just said all this. Going on vacation Thursday through Monday, so I have just been doing a lot of like prep work in order to get ready for that as a new business owner, baby. So sometimes life doesn't go according to plan, and I think the most important thing that I've learned so far is trying to be flexible and bob and weave when life goes unexpectedly. So I am just getting right back on my horse. I saw that I had absolutely no audio in the last episode recording, and I was like, I'm just not doing a podcast this week, but got over it, got over my ego, got back on the horse, and I'm just gonna film it. So this one's gonna be messy and slopped together, but you know what? That's fine. That's why we're here. This isn't supposed to be perfect or polished or professional. This is just supposed to be real. So welcome back, guys. I hope everybody had a wonderful Mother's Day with their families. To all of the mothers out there, happy one day late Mother's Day. I hope you all had a great weekend. And in today's episode, I wanted to talk about the growth mindset. So I've kind of been going through a lot on my journey, my own unique business journey, and I've learned a lot of lessons in the course of the last year, probably more lessons than I would have learned in 10 years had I not started a business. So learning a lot of cool stuff and trying to just document my journey digitally. So today I am going to talk a little bit about the growth mindset and the story I experienced in my life that kind of drove me into thinking about all this on a deeper level. So way back, like, oh my gosh, 3 years at this point, probably 2.5, 3 years, way back. Me and Matt were planning our initial wedding, and we had to postpone the wedding. I had so many variables going on in my life at the time, between my 9 to 5 burning me out, trying to start the business and get that up off the ground, and then also trying to plan a wedding. Everything was really crazy, and one of the things was going to give. I didn't want any of them to have to, but something was going to. So we ended up deciding to just postpone the wedding. But anyway, when we were initially doing all of our stuff, we were up in the area kind of doing some wedding paperwork up by my parents, and we had to stop at the grocery store for something. So we ran in really quick, and one of the displays that they had like right inside the front door, where they usually have like produce and plants or flowers depending on the time of year and the season and if there's a holiday, in that like holiday display area, there were these money trees, and I had always wanted one. So I saw them and I was like, man, I really want to get one. And it was right after we were just doing some paperwork for the wedding planning, and I was like, this could be like a symbol, like of our relationship, and as it grows together, it could be whatever, stupid girl stuff. So we got the money tree, and I was like so stoked at the time. I always wanted one. I like held it lovingly the whole way home. And at the time, we were living in his mom's basement, doing the basement hustle, doing the small business basement hustle. Classic. It was fun though, honestly. I love that was a part of my journey, like the classic built it in a basement type business. So we were living there at the time, and we didn't get a ton of light, and it wasn't really optimal conditions for a plant like that. So I did take care of it best I could, but it was just like dying like really fast, like lost huge segments of just bark and stuff, like lost segments. There were like 4 things that were kind of all twined together, if anybody knows what a money tree looks like, and I lost 2 of those pieces. There were only 2 left, and at this point we were kind of looking to focus a little bit more on ourselves. Just life was so crazy and there were so many variables. So I ended up going to spend some time with my parents, and I know that my dad's really good at taking care of plants. So I brought this tree home so that maybe he could save it. By the time I got it home, it was already losing its 3rd segment. It only had like 1 stick left with some leaves on top. And, money trees are like meant to be braided and stuff. So I was pretty bummed about this, but it was what it was. And once he started taking care of it, more leaves started growing. You know, it was really cool. I was like, wow, maybe this thing can be saved. And I wanted to propagate it because I didn't like the way that it was just like one stick. I wanted it to be like a pretty braided tree, like the classic look. And I watched some videos online where they were like, just break off a segment and stick it in water and it'll grow. Well, I tried that with like 3 or 4 segments. I really like took a lot of foliage off the tree doing this. Like took 3 or 4 segments, tried to propagate it. All of them died. All of them. I was like, oh no. So at this point it was starting to die again. And there was like one healthy segment left on the tree. And I asked my dad for help. I was like, I really want to propagate this and try to save it. So we looked up some videos, and you have to like take part of the actual stem segment, not just the node. Like you need piece of the stem that the node is attached to, apparently. I didn't know this initially. This is how we learn. We make mistakes, we learn from them. And we got that cut and I stuck it in water. And at this point, I started to kind of like not be up my parents like full time anymore. I was kind of starting to move back into the, you know, wanting to revisit the relationship with Matt and get back to all that stuff. So I was like here and there in between. Wasn't really able to take care of the tree like I needed to. And I didn't realize you were supposed to change the water every 2 to 3 days. So it went like 2 months in the same water. And the reason that you have to change the water is if water is stagnant, it loses its oxygen content, which like suffocates the plant essentially. So here I was suffocating this plant unbeknownst to me. And finally I was like, I can't leave it here. I'm going to have to bring it down and take care of it, because at this point I was fully moved back into the apartment with Matt and we were kind of rebuilding things. So that was really great. And I was starting to be really happy. And this was like an upswing period of my life where I was like, really, I hit a low. Now we were in an upswing. I was like, I want to do something to save this tree. So I ended up bringing the tree down here, and I didn't want to. I was reluctant because we have cats that love to eat plants. That's why I kept it at my parents' for so long, but then I realized I can't be there to change the water as frequently as it has to be changed. So it's all or nothing. If I bring it down and it gets eaten, it was going to die anyway. Or I could bring it down and I at least stand a chance of saving it because it's going to die at home anyway. So I brought it down and got it all cleaned up. I got the jar that it was in totally scrubbed out and cleaned up, got everything together, and just started to regularly change the water. And slowly, little by little, it started to grow these little like crumbles on the bottom of the stem segment. And I was like, oh, great, this is roots. And I was like really excited about it. But then every time that I would like go to clean the plant off or change the water, if you would shake the water around a little too rough, they would just like crumble off. So this would happen and I'd get really disheartened and disappointed, and on it went, you know, whether it was fault of mine or fault of forces beyond my control, like the cats eating it or wind blowing it out of the water. It would grow these little crumbles. A cat would tear it out of the plant and drag it across the house like a toy, or eat a leaf, or the wind would blow it out of its thing while we were at a car show and it was laying dried up dead on the stairs. Over and over and over and over. This happened like 5, 6, 7, 8 times. And I was just totally losing hope. I was like, this plant's going to die. It's going to be all my fault. I killed the one thing that I wanted to save in this world. I was like really, really mean to myself in my head about it. And going through this whole experience, I know it sounds silly and stupid, but I really grew a lot through this entire experience. I know it sounds weird. And I was going through learning how to be a business owner at the same time. Like it was just kind of a double-edged sword, like teaching me dual meanings about life. So it was facing all kinds of adversity. It was getting torn out by the cats, drug across the house, played with like a toy, eaten, thrown down the stairs, dried up overnight. Like it literally was going through so much shit. And it's crazy because at the time, my business also, to me, felt like it was going through this level of shit. Like no matter what I did to try to fight for life, something was kicking me down. And I really started to relate to this frickin' plant. I know it sounds dumb. Trust me, I already know. I know it sounds dumb. But after a certain point, I really started to like relate to this plant. We became like those coworkers in solidarity. Like, yeah, this shit sucks. Yeah, this shit sucks. You know, like just really felt like that. So going through all this shit, and I keep at it, like I was at this point in my life, I was at a point where it was just like, I was so ready to quit on my business. I was so tired. I was so beaten down. All the odds were against me. I was so ready to just throw in the towel and accept failure and go back to the 9 to 5 and be an embarrassment in my own head and have my dad tell me, I told you so, and all this shit. So ready to give up. And at this point, the plant was like, all of its leaves that it had on it were dead and gone. It dried up, it turned brown, it fell off. It was just a stick. It was literally just a stick, to the point I had to put like popsicle sticks over the glass and tie it with string to keep it elevated, because the way I used to have it resting on the glass was like the segment with the leaves that it had would prop it up so it wasn't like totally submerged. I had to like rig up a little system to tie string around the stick and elevate it with popsicle sticks so it sat at the correct position in the glass. It was that bad. And this plant was like basically dead, basically just a stick with absolutely no roots growing whatsoever. And I was ready to quit on my business, and I was like, you know what? I know it's fucked up to say, but I'm willing to quit on myself. I'm not willing to quit on this plant though. And I looked at that plant and I was like, listen, if you don't quit on me, I won't quit on you. And ever since that day, I tried my hardest. I tried my hardest in my business. I tried my hardest to save that plant. I changed its water lovingly every 2-3 days. I would carry it from the one window to the other window because the sun rises on one side of the house and sets on the other side. And I would carry it lovingly from the one window to the other window every single solitary day for months. I still do. This is part of my daily routine at this point. And little by little, I watched it grow the little crumbles. And, it started to show like it was having signs of life in certain areas. And then the one day, I saw the most beautiful, bright white shoot coming out of the bottom. And it was a root, a real one, not just a bullshit crumble that's going to fall off. And it grew really fast. And as it grew and then established, it would like grow a decent amount of length, and then it would like harden into like a bark, like how tree roots look with that like bark around them. It would grow this like thin bark around it, but stop growing. Like the root would no longer grow in length. It would take time and form this protective layer around the like fragile way that the root has initially grown. And then once that protective layer was done being formed, it would send out another segment of fresh white root that would grow like a little bit more, and then it would stop, and then it would form that protective coating. And that was the process. And I would watch, because I was watching through a water propagation, I could see everything. As the root would grow, the leaves would stop growing. And as it would form its protective layer, the leaves would grow. And then once it was ready to grow its roots again, the leaves would stop growing and it would focus on growing its roots. And I'm literally watching this plant choose where to send its focus. Like, are we doing root growth today? Or are we doing leaf growth today? And it was just the most fascinating thing. And at this point I saw a meme, and it was like, some days you're growing your roots and some days you're growing your leaves. And honestly, it sounds so dumb that I didn't really know what that meant until pairing it with this direct analogy that I was watching happening in front of my face. But that's what it means. I didn't know. Honestly, I didn't know until I took care of this plant and I got to watch it grow over the course of the last so many months. And I really just do feel like that can be what business growth looks like, because for me at least, and I know everybody's journey is different, but for my business in specific or in particular, it really felt like that. Like as this plant was dying and getting stomped on and getting trampled, that's how my business felt. And as it started to take root and grow and thrive, like I really also feel that way in my business. And I just wanted to take the time to film an episode and talk about it a little bit, that, growth isn't a straight line, no matter how bad you want growth to be a straight line, because I was that person. Like I thought growth was a straight line. You know, I didn't really have this close experience watching nature grow and how nature, you know, like, I know it sounds like hippie shit to say, but like, we are all a part of this earth. We are all a part of nature, and getting to watch nature grow. There's seasons of growth, death, life, blooming, existing, breathing, all of these things. It's all a part of the cycle of life. And, you know, being in an area where we see all four seasons, and you see, you know, winter, spring, summer, and fall, and just watching the cycle of life, it really has changed a lot for me in my business and made me realize, you know, sometimes you have these seasons where business is dormant, and sometimes you have these seasons where things slow down, and it's okay and it's normal and natural. And sometimes you have these seasons where you're seeing a crazy amount of growth, because sometimes you're growing your roots and sometimes you're growing your leaves or you're blooming. And that's my little perspective I wanted to share with you guys. Like I said, I hope the audio is recording. I will actually be really sad if it doesn't for the second time in a row. Probably should have filmed a test recording, but I was too lazy to. So these are the consequences I am accepting for my actions. But I hope everybody had such a wonderful Mother's Day weekend, and I am really excited for my little vacation. Hopefully the business is able to just kind of smoothly cruise through it, and I'm hoping that I did enough prep work, and hopefully everything goes okay. But if not, that's okay too. And I'm really learning to be at peace when life goes unexpectedly, because everything is figure outable. And I think that that's really cool. And I'm very happy. I'm finding a lot more peace in myself and in my business, and doing the self work that is actually the soul work is so, so important. So don't forget, self-care is soul work. We need it as creatives. That is our fuel for recharge. I saw this one reel like last night or something, where it was, I forget his name. He's super, super like popular on Instagram. People are going to yell at me if I can't remember his name, but he's the dude that does like the future, like the business talk page. And the one reel, it was talking about how he doesn't believe that procrastination is a bad thing, especially for creatives, because the way that your brain works, so cool, is like we have this series of like reading and writing memory, kind of like computers. Like our brains have this system of reading and writing to our memory. And he was like, when you are in your like active, I forget how it was. I'll have to just like post the link to the reel like in the description or something, but I forget how it went, but it was something about how in your like daytime hours, when you're busy and you have to like be attentive or focused on something, you're in this like just receiving information to like your RAM memory. It's not actually like solid state memory yet. It's just in RAM. So it's like as you're going through your day, it's kind of writing to your RAM memory. And then as you sleep at night, your subconscious, it writes it to your core memory. It writes it to your solid state. And this goes on like on and on every day. As you're awake and you're focused, it is like bringing in memory, and then when you're like zoned out or you're sleeping or whatever, it's writing to core memory. It's really interesting the way that this was talked about. And when we procrastinate and we're doing things that are like mindless chores, like laundry or doing the dishes or things like that, our brain as creatives has the ability to slip into this like archival memory. When we're doing tasks like that, like painting or doing something that you don't have, like painting a wall, I mean, not doing like an artistic painting, that takes a lot of focus, but like painting a wall or doing dishes or whatever, you're able to slip into this like archival memory where you have access to like every memory that you've ever encountered, and it drives the creative thought. And it was just like the coolest perspective. So it's like, I'm just really at peace for just enjoying the journey, letting life come and go as it does, and just existing and being happy to be here. So really happy, very excited for the vacation. Hopefully everything goes okay. And I don't know when I will be making my next episode, because vacation might make stuff crazy, but hopefully if all goes well, maybe next Monday. If things are crazy, it probably won't be till the end of that week. But regardless, I will talk to you guys again soon. Thank you to everybody that supports the podcast. I forgot to do my intro because I was thrown off because I lost all of the footage of the episode I just filmed that was 30 minutes long. So forgot to do the intro, but that's fine. This is messy. This is raw. This is real. This is not perfect. This is not polished. It's not meant to be. This is what growth looks like. And I think it's really cool shifting from a perfectionist mindset to a growth mindset. It does a lot of good. It changed a lot for me. And I hope that this episode can inspire somebody to look at life a little bit differently, a little bit more like we are growing plants and trees. And the coolest part about this whole thing I'll leave you guys with is, while I was caring for this plant and going through this insane roller coaster of a journey with all of these emotions attached to it, I had a dream that that plant was a tree, a very tall, beautiful tree. And every single day where it felt like it was going to die or I felt like I was going to fail it, I said to myself, I dreamt it was a tree. And I started to say that to myself in my business. You know, when I am going through a hard time and I feel like I am going to fail and I feel like I'm slipping or I'm falling or it's, you know, crashing down on itself, I just sit back and say, I dreamt it was a tree. And it gives me the courage and the strength to push on for another day and keep fighting for the future that I want. So hopefully that helps inspire some fellow creatives out in the introverse. Love you guys so much. Thanks for supporting the podcast. And I will catch you guys in the next one. Got some very exciting guest episodes coming up this summer too. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be really, really fun. Bye.